talking about the head and the billies and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. This a fi we we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a fi we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me. My name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. This a fi we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a fi we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me. My name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. This a fi we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a fi we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me. My name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area.
June 8th, 2025. This is where we make sense of the news. I'm the producer and host, Sister YaYa Marin Coleman. Our co-host is Brother Mutota, and our guest this morning will be Dr. Breddah. I said Carla Curtis Boodoo. I hope I pronounced the last name right.
You did.
Breddah, how are you being this morning?
I am very well, Sister YaYa. Thank you, and good morning to our listening audience once again.
On a notice,
good
Brother,
morning, good morning to our guest, Dr. Curtis Boodoo from my country, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, how could I not see that? Yeah. We have two Trinidad in the house. Brother Dr. Curtis Boodoo is an assistant professor of utilities and sustainable engineering at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. And so, class in session this morning, we're going to call on the people. You know that usually, in town, I say guest pass on the review that usually Brother Akko link. That's why he is the person in the region. If you're credible, you can work with her. You don't notice I got pretty that she. Don't pay attention to Brother Akko. You don't sleep on Brother Akko. You got pretty that she today. So Brother Curtis is with us because he shed some light today on utilities, electricity in particular. I reach out to her because I want to learn more about utilities. When BEL may make it known that they want to raise the rates, I said, make I find somebody in the region who know more than most about utilities for reasons. But before we get to that, how are you? How are you doing this morning, Brother Curtis?
Fine, I'm fine and excited to be here this morning on the show. I'm looking forward for the engaging questions. It's nice and hot in Trinidad with some light rain, so greetings from Trinidad.
Thank you. He in there a city and Brother Akko there a country. Two different parts of Trinidad experience. Brother Akko.
He's from Central Trinidad.
Where's there?
He's in Central Trinidad and I'm in Southeastern Trinidad.
Okay. We have to get a map of Trinidad, make we could get familiar with Trinidad. Brother Akko, come in with the Caribbean report, please.
Yeah, so just some news items. One dated in May, which I think is important to hear for the listening audience to be aware of. And it has to do with Cuba. It's called In Defense of Cuba's Health Missions. And those who follow the news would know that the United States have been pressuring Cuba in many different ways. And one of the things most recently attacked was the health system, in which the US claimed that it was slave labor masquerading as health and international support. So the statement is from the ministers of health of the non-aligned countries, and they stated, and I would read now, International cooperation and solidarity are essential in tackling global challenges, including efforts to ensure the effective realization of the right to health for all nations. As proclaimed by the United Nations, promoting international cooperation and solidarity is a duty of states. In this context, we express our profound appreciation, gratitude, and recognition to Cuban health professionals who have provided and continue to provide their services in multiple nations. Since 2019, and with even greater intensity now, a dishonest campaign has been unleashed to discredit Cuba's international medical cooperation, also to exert pressure on recipient governments and deprive populations of essential healthcare services. No one with a basic sense of honesty can doubt that this is an attack on multilateralism and a manipulation for political purposes and a continuation of the aggression and hostility against Cuba. Access to healthcare is a human right, and millions of people cannot be deprived of this inalienable right for political reasons. Attempts to delegitimize Cuban medical cooperation overlook the fact that the shortage of health professionals is a pressing issue worldwide, whose solution demands greater international cooperation and solidarity, not unfounded attacks. Cuba has devoted considerable efforts and resources to healthcare, and today has one of the highest ratios of doctors per capita in the world, enabling it to make a significant contribution to global health. Cuban International Medical Corporation has made it possible to provide high-level quality healthcare to millions of people around the world. Over the past 60 years, more than 605,000 Cuban health collaborators have completed missions worldwide in 165 nations. So that was very important because throughout the Caribbean, even in Trinidad, the Cuban health professionals play a critical role in our health sector. And I have been the recipient of Cuban medical help in my community. And so this dishonest attack on Cuba needs to be known, and people in the Caribbean need to be aware of this situation. The second item has to do with a situation here which we reviewed last week. A couple of weeks ago, our guest was Darius Figuera, who dealt with the whole question of the drug trade and its implications for the Caribbean. And this headline is out of Guyana, and it has to do with the fact that recently senior officials in the administrator of Guyana were suspended for supposedly involved in the drug trade. So the headline is from Guyana, U.S. sanctions nationals, including senior police officer, over drug trafficking. The Guyanese government says it will continue to work diligently with the United States after the U.S. Department of Treasury, after the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, sanctioned a number of named Guyanese and foreign nationals as a result of continuing investigations into the use of Guyana as a place for transshipment of drugs to the North American country. In statements, Georgetown said that it welcomes a significant development in the actions taken on Thursday by OFAC after the U.S. agency imposed sanctions against the Guyana Police Force Senior Superintendent Himnoth Saw, among others, for drug trafficking. In reference to this development, the Police Service Commission has taken note and sent Senior Superintendent Himnoth Saw on administrative leave with immediate effect to facilitate further investigations. The details will guide the actions of the Police Service Commission and by extension the government of Guyana. Saw was a divisional commander for Region 1 Barima Winer when, with U.S. support, the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit, CANU, and the Guyana Defense Force extracted 4.4 tons of cocaine worth $195 million US near an illegal airstrip near Mabaruma, Northwest District. OFAC said Saw allegedly ensured safe passage to Colombian and Venezuelan traffickers through Region 1. In September 2024, following the discovery of the cocaine in Region 1, Saw was removed as divisional commander of the Region 1. 3 other Guyanese and 2 Colombians were sanctioned, but noted among other things that narco trafficking was being done through Guyana's interior. That's a very serious issue we have in the Caribbean, the issue of narco trafficking. So that is out of Guyana. The next, hold on here. The next piece of news comes out of Jamaica, and it has to do with what seems to be a pattern emerging in the Caribbean. Recently, there was a state of emergency declared in Guyana when citizens of the country felt that there was a murder investigation of a young girl that was not thoroughly investigated. And so a state of emergency was declared in Guyana. And now I saw here recently another state of emergency was declared in Jamaica. And the headline is Ongoing Violence in Jamaica. Ongoing violence in parts of Jamaica and an ongoing curfew imposed in parts of Jamaica have been renewed. So there was one curfew that has not been renewed. The 48-hour curfew that was imposed in sections of the Kingston Eastern Police Division have been extended. The curfew will continue from 6:30 p.m., 6 p.m. on Saturday and continue. And so this seems to be one of the policies of states in the Caribbean when faced with policy failure or other kinds of challenges from the population, they issue states of emergencies. And that cannot be a solution to ongoing social and political problems, which it seems to be one of the methods that are being used by governments in the region. Another headline from Trinidad, this deals with the 17 of 21 deportees from the U.S. arrived in Trinidad. These deportees are part of the policy of U.S. President Donald Trump to repatriate supposedly legal immigrants to their country of origin. It has been reported that some of these deportees arriving in the Caribbean are sex offenders and the perpetrators of other crime. Very, very important to note. And there's one last piece of news I want to read here before we move on. The headline is Jamaica's deadly motorcycle culture persists. Data from the Island Trafficking Authority shows a 21% decrease in motorcycle-related fatalities, falling from 56 deaths in the first 5 months from 2024 to 46 deaths during the period of 2025. Experts say the statistics reflect more than road conditions. And point is important. They reflect a culture. Motorcycles are often seen as symbols of independence, power, and status, particularly among young Jamaican men aged 20 to 29, and who continue to make up the majority of crash victims. In 2024, 32 men in the age group died in motorcycle crashes compared to 24. This discrepancy reflects a troubling reality. Young men appear to be disproportionately drawn to high-speed riding, stunts, and riding without helmets, behaviors often glorified on social media and in peer groups. The World Health Organization estimates that helmets reduce the risk of death by 42% and serious head injury by 69%. However, research in Jamaica shows that 40% of motorcycle drivers do not wear helmets while riding, and 31% of pillion passengers never wear helmets. Even when helmets are worn, they are often not certified and are cheap imports on novelty helmets that do not meet international safety standards. Changing the culture on helmets is key of the National Helmet Wearing Coalition as part of its ongoing efforts to reduce further motorbike accidents in Jamaica. I think this was important because I've known of a number of cases in the Caribbean, including parts of the Dutch Caribbean, where because of this culture of speed and to some extent, a certain kind of recklessness. Young men have lost their lives, riding motorcycles at extremely high speeds without proper safety equipment. So this is what I would end on, that last part, and we can now move on to the rest of the show.
Brother, I can remember Sunday Review is Belize's only news review talk show. Only. Bragging about that. Because it matters what happens in the Caribbean. It matters to us, other than just making headlines, that we spend some time talking about it and finding out the similarities. So I believe it was in April, Belize Electricity Limited asked the Public Utilities Commission for a raise from Belizeans to pay 40 cents per kilowatt hour to 43 cents per kilowatt hour per kilowatt for electricity rates, and it was not approved. Give thanks, it was not approved. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity for get somebody where formally trained and know about electricity utilities for contact to about electricity in particular. So again, he's from Trinidad, from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, living in Trinidad. Breddah, Curtis, we got line up for this morning. Tell me what are some basic things. Okay, not different to your class now. Everyday people are talk to. Tell me some basic things what consumers and people who want to be consumers one day have to pay, need to know about utilities, electricity in particular.
Okay, great. That's an easy question. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity. Where do I start off? I think it's a good idea to start off with a sort of overview of the electricity sector in Belize. So you would know the context BEL is coming from when they ask for a rate increase. So you know why. In 2022, more than half of the electricity generated in Belize came from renewable energy. In fact, Belize has the highest percentage of renewable energy generation in CARICOM. So you lead the region when it comes to renewable energy generation. The issue is the other half. The other half comes from imports from Mexico, right? You have very limited or little fossil fuel generation in Belize, and you import close to half of your electricity from Mexico. Mainly because of climate change, driven by climate change. As you are aware, in Belize, the dry season is very hot and dry. In fact, there's no dry and wet season in the Caribbean. It's all hot with torrential rainfall. So the higher temperatures would mean that there is the need for more air conditioning or space cooling, comfort cooling. And the good people of Mexico feel the same, that it's very hot and they need more electricity for their AC units. And the issue comes with that connection from Mexico to Belize. A lot of it is being consumed in Mexico, so the cost of electricity now goes up. Remember, when the demand for any commodity, that demand grows up, the cost goes up. When the demand for a commodity goes down, the cost goes down. So because there's a demand for electricity in Belize, in Mexico, the cost that Belize has to pay for that electricity goes up. And that's where the problem comes in for BEL, because they have to pay for this imported electricity. And what they're saying from their filings with the PUC is that the costs for electricity Belizeans pay, they are unable to recover the costs they have to pay to Mexico to provide that electricity. In fact, the recent filings to the PUC by BEL is one where they say in excess of 60 million Belizean dollars needs to be recovered through any mechanisms, and the mechanism they want to use here is an increase in electricity rate, because they had to pay more for that electricity in the past. And as we enter what is normally the hotter months in Belize, that price for electricity in Mexico will go up, and the demand in Belize will be high as well. I remember my experience in Belize last year where they were planned brownouts. Planned brownouts meaning that the EL will say to you, well, we're not going to have electricity. You're not going to have electricity in this jurisdiction for a certain period of time. And that is because they were trying to manage the usage, all right, and trying to remove that cost, that higher cost. So that is the context that the electricity sector in Belize is currently at. It's very unique because Belize is the only member of CARICOM that imports electricity from a neighbor. Most of the Caribbean islands, we are islands. Of course, Guyana doesn't import any electricity from any of its neighbors currently, but Belize is unique in that sense. And it gives you a challenge that the other islands did not have, because the other smaller islands couldn't rely on anyone from their electricity. They would have spent decades building out their own internal capacity to meet their needs. But again, because of climate change and hotter temperatures, you now realize, or Belize BEL realizes this, and the people of Belize realize this as well, that electricity now is more costly from our source. And that cost is soon, in some form, will be passed on to the people of Belize. And it's about managing that cost. That's the government's role in terms of what that cost could be, who pays, who doesn't pay. And that's really the heart of the conversation we'll be having. So I hope you get a picture of the electricity sector in Belize. Let me just end off with a few lines and say that there are a number of projects being planned in Belize for renewable energy, sizable projects involving solar and battery storage that will address this issue. However, it takes time. It takes time for you to install and commission a large solar plant. It takes time for you to install the batteries. It's not only the construction time, but it's the procurement time, because most of these projects are either loans from international banks or they're grant-funded projects. So there is some paperwork and some sizable paperwork at that for the government of Belize and others to go through before you actually reach the stage of building and commissioning. So they're not happening as fast as they should be. And BEL is feeling the heat. And that's why we are here having this conversation about the increase in rates. They're in a very difficult situation.
Well, Belizeans are also feeling the heat double, especially working class and indigent Belizeans who currently earn minimum wage is $5 an hour. There's a large, regardless of what the Statistical Institute of Belize say, there's a large group of people who are unemployed. So the cost of services, because eventually BEL want increase, well, PUC want give BEL the approval for increased rates. And then the cost of goods are going up especially with the President of the United States increasing tariffs. So everything they go up, but for we salary or wages, and even when it go up, it's still they're not a living wage. So we still don't want this disadvantage. Now, one of the things with when BEL asked for the increase, if anybody else may do it, if I check the news and I never said nobody else see that the news do it, so I'm not gonna tell you why I say on the news. Nobody never broke down how much BEL they asked for and where they used the money for. So BEL may ask for an increase of 506.6 million Belize dollars. Then you can show it, Christy. They may want 395 million Belize dollars in a new projects like better power lines and new equipment. And then they want 46 million for keep things running in 2025. Salaries, repairs. Then they look out for salaries for them. Nobody now look over salaries to Belizean people. And then they get Wasara, 65.6 million Belize dollars to correct past under collections from 2023. So that mean get for them pound of flesh anywhere look on it. And then they got a nerve to say, oh, it only going up 3 cents per kilowatt. But that 3 cents per kilowatt may cover that $506.6 million. I don't know
let me highlight something that I should have highlighted as my introduction. It's not actually 3 cents, it's more. The PUC went through the filings from BEL and they came up with the new rate being 0.4547 billion cents. So what is being highlighted is that the new rate is supposed to be 0.43, right? 43 billion cents. But when the PUC went through BEL's filing, the PUC is saying that the new rate that they're getting from the documents BEL submitted, that new rate is 0.4547 per kilowatt. So it's more in reality than the 43 cents. It looks very close to 45. It is 45 cents and a little more. So it is per kilowatt hour. Now, let me also agree with you in saying that there is a significant portion of the Belizean population that are classified as below the poverty line. It doesn't matter what metric you use, the UN metrics, etc. There's a significant portion. And there was a World Bank study that looked at low-income households in Belize. And they found that 30% of their income goes towards electricity rates or electricity payments. So a third of low-income households in Belize, a third of their net tax income goes towards electricity payments. That's before the rate increase. So what needs to be done? And now let me be fair to BEL and the government as well. BEL has something called a social rate. What it means is that if you use less than 60 kilowatt hours per month, they charge you 22 billion cents, right? So it's meant to address the issue of the low income families that may not have an AC unit and other heavy appliances to use much electricity. So if you're using a small amount of electricity, then you pay 22 billion cents for that. The issue with this social rate is that it's only for 60 kilowatt hours. That is too small. That needs to be increased. It could be increased to 120 kilowatt hours, 100 kilowatt hours. Let me give you a regional example. In Jamaica, from 0 to 100 kilowatt hours, that portion of your bill, the government pays for that, right? So they subsidize the electricity for residential by doing that. So that applies for all classes in Jamaica, right? Low income, middle income, it's across the board. Criticism of that is obviously that you're kind of paying for people who have the money to pay for high electricity, right? So that is what's being implemented. So what I could say is that what needs to be done is a proper information gathering exercise with the low income portion of the society in Belize and figure out how much electricity they actually use and what are the appliances they use. And use that data to revise that social tariff. So if the low-income family in Belize uses on average 120 kilowatt hours, then you need to set that low-income tariff to that limit of 120 kilowatt hours and look at keeping it at 22 billion cents. Now, the new rate proposal doesn't talk about the social tariff. So it's silent on that. So BEL would have to provide some additional information on that and the PUC. But that's the way that they're trying to address that. So to add to your point, 30%, a third of low-income households' income goes towards electricity. So they are very vulnerable to this rate increase, which is not 43 cents. It's more looking like 45 cents. Please.
Big thanks, Brother Akka.
Well, my question is, well, one is why is the dependence on Mexico still, and I don't know if you can answer that question.
Yeah.
Still, why is that dependence still there? The other thing that maybe we can shed some light on is, I know for a fact that at one point in time, the utilities were entirely state-owned, 100% state-owned, most of the utilities. And then Margaret Thatcher came into power with her neoliberal agenda and set a trend in terms of deregulation and private, well, not so much privatizing utilities. Okay? And a number of the British utilities were privatized. And that set a trend to me, from what I understand, globally, right? In the US, it took the forms of deregulation. For example, in Georgia, where I lived, even though they didn't privatize in a normal way, what they did, they created like a kind of, they opened the utilities for private investment. So it is not listed as privatized, but technically it is privatized. Okay? I also explored other areas like, and I'm saying I'm throwing out a lot of things to get back to your question. How can utilities be organized so it has less impact on the economically, those on below the line, near the poverty line? And some of the things I've seen, for example, are cooperative models of utilities, where the utilities in Spain and Denmark and Sweden, they are cooperatively owned, and so the price is lessened. So I don't know if you can shed light on that as a new model for Belize electricity organization, the model, and also why, after all of these years, there is still a dependency on Mexico.
I'll have to make it answer it after the break. So
Sure.
yeah, catch you time for catch your breath. But if I want put on the ice thing on the cake. Then build some dam, actually 3 dams, I believe. There was much pushback against them dams because it's supposed to make the electricity rates go down. We're not talking about the harm to the environment and how it impact people in the communities when they put them 3 dams. But we are stretch talking after the break. We have Brother Curtis Boodoo from Trinidad and Tobago. He is an assistant professor of utility sustainable engineering at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, we have co-host Breddah Mutota from Trinidad and Tobago as well. 2 of them that are Trinidad, but 1 that are city and 1 that are country. Stay tuned. You know, go call on the people. It's a Belizean people business. You know, look, BL not that kind of awareness, campaign. Nobody else do that kind of awareness like behind the zinc fence. Cause we care about people in business. I don't want to tell you how I nearly choke when you talk about when because I never noticed. I don't know if the news will say that when PUC check the BL submission, they say that the 1 cent and 1 cent never add up to 2 cents. But anyways, here in a paper, Sunday review time where it makes sense of the news. Break time.
Imagine getting rewards for your spending. Smart prepaid customers countrywide, it's time to level up with Smart Gains. Smart Gains are exclusive, limited time offers sent straight to your phone. We're talking irresistible rewards. You'll actually want extra credit, bonus data, and exclusive perks, all tailored to you. Because it's smart, we've always got your back. Don't miss out on rewards made just for you. Smart Gains, smart savings, smart you. Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome to Atlantic Online. In this step-by-step video, we will show you how to unlock your user. Click Unlock User on the personal login page. Enter your username, then click Send OTP. You will receive a 6-digit one-time password OTP via email and SMS. The OTP is valid for 5 minutes. Do not share this OTP with anyone. Enter the OTP, then click Unlock. If you did not receive the OTP, click Resend OTP. And if you still do not receive the OTP, please visit your nearest branch. Your account has now been unlocked successfully, and you can now log in. For more step-by-step videos, view our Atlantic Online playlist on YouTube to learn how to perform your banking transactions. Bank your way with any of our digital channels and save time for what matters most.
Make light work lighter and quicker with switch technology from Axi Power Tools. Axi Switch technology breaks the bondage of power cords and grants you the luxury of freedom and precision. Switch one battery across all your Axi line power tools effortlessly, allowing for quick and efficient work. Cut the cords. Choose efficiency with Axi Switch technology. Only at Benny's. Quality and savings.
Guatemala, Flamino, this a GTA, we da Guatemala, Flamino, this a GTA, we da Breddah. Nobody give it to no Guatemala, this a me, my name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area, 110% Belize and proud of it, sir. Don't tell me about maritime area, long time ago agreement by the slave master, talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Country bad, love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. This a GTA, we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Flamino, this a GTA, we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a me, my name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize.
On the review where we make sense of the news, Belize only news review talk show. Sister YaYa, Brother Akko, Brother Curtis, all things electricity. Well, we are quiet for a while because we dropped some big question from Brother Curtis before we go on a break. Make we hear the answer. If you remember the question, I want Brother Akko repeat them, Brother Curtis.
I could remember one of them, which I'll answer, and Brother Akko will prompt me when I finish to the next
But
one.
one of the questions is why the
That's the first one.
dependency.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Yeah. Let me answer that one, and we could go to the next one. Of course, it's only my opinion I could share on this matter. Why the dependency? I would say it was cheap. The electricity from Mexico was cheap, and it was cheap for a very long time. And then, climate change really started to happen and come about, and the temperatures increased, and the internal demand for electricity in Mexico went up, and the cost for Belize to buy this electricity went up because the internal demand in Mexico increased. Now, I think that a mistake that would have been made is that when you purchase the electricity and it's cheap, that doesn't mean the commodity itself is cheap. To know the true value of something is to take it away. So when you don't have electricity, what's the cost? Well, the cost is that the school sends home the children early because you're going to have a brownout. The cost is the hospitals will have to run on generator power for the period that you don't have electricity. The cost is commercial and small businesses in Belize have to close when there's no electricity. So although for a decade or more, Belize has been paying a very cheap price for electricity. The cost of that electricity is what wasn't really appreciated for the livelihood and economic development of Belize. And now with Mexico raising that price and having to manage it and having to deal with brownouts whereby they have scheduled outages, you now appreciate the cost for electricity. That you were getting a steal of a deal for a very long time, but now the market dynamics have changed. We all like to criticize governments here in the Caribbean, and rightly so. Governance has a lot to be desired in the region, a lot of improvements, and this should have been identified, or probably it was identified early on as a key aspect of society, that you importing a commodity as vital as electricity. There's a reliability and security issues associated with that. I'm certain that was identified, but acting on it costs money. Now, as I mentioned, the government is acting on it. The administration, BEL, is acting on it. There are plans for solar farms and battery storage, but it just takes time. And at this stage, solar and battery energy is very it's cheap. The price for solar and battery energy keeps on going down. So it's cheaper this year than it would have been 4 or 5 years ago. So perhaps the financial equations or the financial mechanics of it make sense now that the cost is dropping to finally make these investments. But I am certain multiple administrations in Belize would have identified this security issue, energy security issue of importing from Mexico and having done it for so long.
So the other thing, before we go into the other question, you made a point about it was cheap. So, we are saying in Trinidad, but I think that it's attributed to the Chinese, and the Chinese say, cheap thing not good, good thing not cheap.
Exactly.
So as a model, and this is the second question I'm going to ask, as a model, we cannot always predicate important things exclusively on the profit and loss motive.
No.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And too many times that is what seems to happen. And you made a very important point about the reliability and security, right? One of the key things of sovereignty is security, not just your economy, your political system, but also things like your utilities, And so the second question is, and this possibly is a question for the rest of the Caribbean too, do we need to move to the point where we need to consider alternative models? As I've done some basic research, there are Eastern and Scandinavian countries that has looked at the cooperative model of electricity, in which is owned by the population. In fact, in rural United States, that model exists. And it is a way of reducing the cost of electricity on a corporate. So do you have any opinions or recommendations, or would you want to share an opinion on looking at different models of the organization of public utilities?
Yeah, sure. Before I get to that, let me just say that energy security, I want to put things in context, and let's not be too critical on the administrations in Belize or the past governments. You have to keep in mind that Germany and all of the European Union were highly dependent on one source for natural gas. And when Russia went into Ukraine, they were helter-skelter trying to get other sources of natural gas, and it became very costly for them. So you have the developed world making a similar, I don't want to say mistake, but having a similar oversight as it relates to their own energy security, especially Germany. So they for years took cheap Russian natural gas, used it. They were aware that it was an energy security issue. But when an issue came up and they had to find other sources, it was extremely costly for them. So they had to pay for that. Thankfully, Belize is not in that situation currently. You are facing a situation where the price of electricity from Mexico is higher, but you're not facing a situation where you have to get rid of it almost immediately. But I think that should be, Belize should reflect on that it could get very bad. You don't know what the political situation could be, in the future. So I just wanted to highlight that point. The idea of the community-owned electricity system is an excellent one. I've experienced it firsthand as well. You mentioned Scandinavian countries. I was fortunate to visit last year, January, to visit Orkney. Orkney is a Scottish island. It's to the north of Scotland. And they are 100% renewable energy generating island. They're one of the few islands that generate all their electricity from renewable energy. They have a lot of wind turbines in Orkney. And their electricity projects are community owned. So take, for example, the community of Corozal in Belize. They could get together and finance a renewable energy project. And as a financier for the project, you own a stake in it, and you distribute, and you would have to pay the electricity. You would have to pay that rate, because that's how it works. You are running a business. So although it's community owned, you have to run it as if BEL or other utility runs it. You just own a stake in it, and you would get your dividends, or you could choose to reinvest in the business. It doesn't matter. So the model that you're proposing is very much mature and successful, and it's extremely successful in an instance of a small island state like Orkney is. Well, it's not its separate state, it's a small island, and that's what they implemented. So you could do the same in Belize, and the advantage Belize has over a lot of the small island states in the Caribbean is land space. You have a lot more land than we have. So you could install larger ground-mounted solar PV systems than we can. I'll give you an example. In Trinidad, at the end of the year, we should complete a 92 megawatt solar system. It's ground-mounted, of course. The area of that solar system that it's taking up, it's around 3 times the area of the Queen's Park Savannah. For those of you who visit Trinidad, the Queen's Park Savannah is in Port of Spain, and it has the Guinness World Record of being the longest roundabout. It just gives you some context on the size of the land. So to install a very large utility-scale solar farm does take up a lot of land space. And for small islands, that's an issue. I'm not saying it's not an issue for Belize, because a lot of your land space should remain for nature and the natural flora and fauna. But there is a possibility of you using up more land space for solar. You do have it, right? So it's a very successful model. It's a model that could be looked at, but you have to make regulatory and legal changes. BEL is still the sole electricity provider. So you're going to have to change the legislation, or you're going to have to use some changes to your regulation to allow communities to be independent power producers and perhaps distribute their own electricity. The business model will have to be decided on, but the philosophy is extremely sound. It's mature. It has been implemented in multiple jurisdictions, and it is something that could be looked into for Belize.
Good. That one, good question you asked, Brother Akko. Now, when they build them 3 dams that Belize, my understanding is the electricity bill shall maybe less. So, make I hear the reason why be that second climate change now, make the dams and other do whatever for the
dams dry. The dams dry. That's the issue. The dams dry. It's not only Belize made investments in hydroelectric. It's done in St. Vincent as well. They have investments in hydroelectric. And guess what? During the dry season, they have very little electricity coming out from that installation. So, once, again, you said it, climate change. Climate change not only raises the temperature, it dries up the water. And, they have that trouble in the Panama Canal as well. They use fresh water to move the ships. So when you realize the cost for your goods goes up coming through the canal, is because it costs more to go through the Panama Canal.
You see, that's why these reasonings matter. For a lot of working class people, for example, when they hear climate change, they ain't study that. What I got for doing me. But when you make that climate change to your cost of electricity going up, to that believe we call it blackout, to rotating blackouts, because we had a lot to say when we started to have rotating blackouts. Like in the 70s, we had a lot of rotating blackouts. But then this, for me, and then unique to Belize, it shows the lack of either political will or insight that nobody really come up with. Make we figure out how, maybe when they did the dams, they thought that was one way to get off Mexico titi. Okay, we're going on the dams. But they hear nobody, like I was glad, Brother Akko, ask you that question, because I never thought about that, like a community-owned utility option. But is there anybody in the region, because they're usually political leadership, who seriously think of a more holistic approach to utilities that would put the people first and not capitalism?
That's a political question.
So I have the answer. I'm trying to phrase it. So
the right when I send for this, but I know. The right when I send it to.
Belize has a electricity utility company that is primarily state-owned, right? 2/3. Trinidad, it's 100% state-owned. Grenada is 100% state-owned. We do have investor-owned utilities in the region. St. Lucia, Jamaica are examples of those. I think Guyana is fully state-owned. So there's a mixture in the region. When you have a state-owned organization, especially one that is as essential as electricity, the government, doesn't matter who they are, would find great difficulty in relinquishing that responsibility. Electricity is like blood for a society, right? You need it. You need it for your, I would go so far, you need it for your very existence. And for government to hand that over to the people, you have to be a very progressive government to be thinking that, right? Especially when significant infrastructure investment has already been made. So the state owns a lot of the assets in BEL, the state owns assets in Trinidad, etc. when it comes to electricity. So the appetite at the administration or the government level for this is very low. Now, I have seen, from my experience in Barbados, it's a bit different. In Barbados, it's investor-owned electricity company. And the government of Barbados isn't all that pleased with the rates that they have and the overall electricity sector. And there is a push for introducing another entity, or trying to introduce other entities to get involved in the electricity market in Barbados, private entities, to allow for competition. So that is something that I'm seeing coming out of Barbados. Barbados has one of the more progressive electricity sectors. So the government could easily, or Belize could easily say, because they own majority stakeholder in BEL, say, let's implement some community solar projects. And let's go on a business model whereby the community and the state would make investments here. And, you could start off with some rural communities that have unreliable electricity and have a high portion of low-income Belizeans living in the community. And you already hinted that rural Belize has a very high portion of low-income person. So the government could easily run a pilot because they are the majority stakeholder in BEL. And one of the responsibilities of the government, of course, is always to improve services and your standard of living and life. So it matches in that regard. So it's probably a pilot project that can easily be taken on by the government if they choose to do so. But it is my opinion that especially when you have a state-owned electricity provider, moving towards these more progressive models, community-owned, can be a challenge. But having said that, the government could easily make things happen because they own the assets, they own the utility. It's much more difficult to do that in a jurisdiction like Barbados or St. Lucia, where the utility is investor-owned. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, the elections was recent, so perhaps there's opportunity to bring this to the attention of the administration, and it's something that we could probably look at.
No, I remember I'm finding the news story in 2021. 3 Maya sisters had gone to India to be trained in how to implement solar powered electricity. And so they, remote villages like Machakilla and Graham Creek. And so I always remember them, sisters. So like there's small independent initiatives. I assist some of the solar panel and travel through Belize, you see it. But yeah, the man got answer for all of the questions. You got another one from Brother Akko?
Well, yes. I have to. I know he said that it will take a progressive state to implement those kinds of policies, but in practical terms, and in theoretical terms, the state is supposed to be the people, but in practical terms, it is not.
The state sometimes takes a position that I don't want to relinquish control over something in your life.
Right, but the state the bureaucracy, which is the government, is not the state.
Good.
Right. The bureaucracy assumes the role of the state. It's like I was looking at something last night, and there was this thing recently about in which the Prime Minister of Britain, his home was attacked. And I'm segueing a bit, but it's connected to the point I'm going to make. His home was attacked. I think 3 of his homes was attacked. And he said, it is an attack on democracy. And the commentator was saying, no, it's not an attack on democracy. It's an attack on you. Mm-hmm. You are not the symbol of democracy. You are elected now, and but the democracy is the process. So the state is supposed to be the people, and the bureaucracy, which is the government, is supposed to represent the people. However, there is a kind of what I call philosophical dissonance, if you want to call it that, in which the bureaucracy assumes that it is the state and treats the people like as if the people are something apart. And that's why I'm emphasizing the whole question of the model. Now, Britain, from which we in the Caribbean draw a lot of our inspiration from, is our colonial master. Our courts, our politics, and everything is connected to the British models. The British utility systems were always owned by the state until Margaret Thatcher came with this model and privatized the utilities. What it has proven, and the research is there, that it neither improved the quality of delivery, neither did it create prices that were favorable to the population. And in fact, there is a big debate now in the UK about the privatization of the thing, because the state is now trying to, I think, take away subsidies for poor people during the winter, and you have that kind of issue. So we have to look, my thing is that we have to have a different philosophical approach in terms of how these things are organized. The other thing that I also wanted to mention was, if you could recall, there was an incident in Texas a few years ago when there was some winter storm that shut down significant parts of Texas. When one did the research, what happened was Texas again deregulated and privatized the electricity company. And so this electricity company will have services from one part, another one take the other part. And so there were a number of them. And because they did not want to integrate and organize, a number of failures took place in which none of them could have delivered services effectively. And this is why the privatization model must be looked at very seriously, and new approaches have to be considered.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
The reality as well is this: state-owned organizations in the Caribbean are not efficient. And it is because governments choose to exercise political control in their executive leadership of state organizations. So electricity is essential. I use the analogy being the lifeblood of society. And the utility should be owned by the people. I agree with you. But how about you run it like it's a private company? How about you ensure that the strategy and the progressive way forward of the state-owned entity is driven by market forces? But yes, the government does exercise a certain level of control. So if the government believes that for the next few years it's tough on the economy of Belize, but they don't see increasing electricity rates as being a strategy to improve economic development, then because they own the utility, they could say, okay, no, you can't increase the rates. So I think that what we need in the Caribbean is management or leadership for our utilities to be improved and not be interfered by political entities or power that is current, or political parties that are currently in power. We have a history of not placing competent people in management positions. And that affects the performance of the state entities. So, but I do agree with you that as it relates to electricity and water, there's a lot of merit in keeping them that ownership being in the state, but perhaps there should be some improvements or efficiency in the management of these entities. And you could learn from private sector in that way. Now, the core issue at hand here is that BEL, as well as in TNTech, which is the equivalent in Trinidad, being state-owned, their business model is selling electricity. That's how they get their profits, major profit. And to allow communities or private citizens to self-generate means that you're affecting their sales. And you will get resistance from them. That's natural. Whether it's the right thing to do, that's a different conversation. But it's natural you're going to get resistance. And I see that in Trinidad and I see that in Belize. This is where the administration or the government has to step in. And knowing that more renewable energy or more home-owned or community-owned renewable energy is beneficial to the country generally, meaning that you're not importing fuel. In your case, you're not importing much electricity from Mexico. That's of national benefit. Rather than you look at it in the more localized position of BL, where you have a company and you can't cut its sales, and its sales come from electricity sales. Now there's a way around this. The utility uses a word called decoupling sales from revenue. Let me tell you what it is. So you probably pay a fixed amount every month to BEL, and then you pay as well amount that depends on how much electricity you use. So one is on volume and one is a fixed amount. If you give the utility or you increase the fixed amount you pay every month, that allows you to decouple their revenue from volume electricity sales. So it doesn't matter as much to them, at least financially, how much electricity they sell, because you now pay a fixed amount, a higher fixed amount every month. In that scenario, it's easier for them to relinquish control of electricity sales to homeowners and communities to install their own electricity supply, because it's no longer dependent on how much kilowatt hours they sell. So that's a model that's been implemented in other jurisdictions, and it's something that we could look at here in the Caribbean. So those are my thoughts or my reactions to as you said, that I totally agree that the utilities, water and electricity, there's a lot of merit in keeping them state-owned, but we have to buckle up our efficiency and management of these organizations.
Respect, we have to go to a break.
We
had one Facebook comment. We try to give people in this conversation. And this person, I want loyal zinc fence participant, Facebook comment, Sonia Allen. The government does not have any money for improvements, just for raises. The financial secretary, the cabinet secretary, and the chief executive officers get a raise retroactive the day after general election, March 13th. So that was put it in that context why the Belizean
right. Well, in Trinidad, we had it before the election.
Yeah, the last one.
They had it before the elections. The CAMSEC annual salary gone from $81,000 Belize dollars to $96,000 Belize dollars.
And CEO's salaries gone 20% increase?
For $76,000 Belize dollars to $88,000 Belize dollars CEOs. All right, I'll tell you the story and then we're going. Here how the CEO salary then get increased. The former commissioner of police gone from the commissioner of police to the CEO. And he said he never take no CEO job and make less money than what he made make as commissioner of police. So because of one person, that was new CEO, all the rest of CEO money gone up. Check that out. For we taxpayers money, Good point, Sonia Allen. Belizean diaspora, Belizean. We are take a final break, come back, and we are reasonable. We get a lot accomplished that is past our big thanks to Brother Curtis, Brother Akko for make the link and for bring the hard questions, Brother Akko. Break time, stay tuned.
Tired of replacing light bulbs? LEDs are what you need. LEDs last up to 30,000 hours. That's 30 times longer than incandescent bulbs, and up to 8 times longer than compact fluorescents. So less changing and less trash. Planet Earth thanks you. And the LED experts at Brothers Habet and Habet will help you find the best LED solution with colors for every room and mood, starting as low as $6.95. You can even get LED strips for home, office, and industrial use. So say goodbye to fluorescent tubes forever. And because they use up to 90% less energy, you save money. Money you can spend on other things. So head to Brothers Habet or Habet today. You can also call, email, or Facebook us. Have a brilliant day.
Welcome to Atlantic Online. In this step-by-step video, we will show you how to unlock your user. Click Unlock User on the personal login page. Enter your username, then click Send OTP. You will receive a 6-digit one-time password, OTP, via email and SMS. The OTP is valid for 5 minutes. Do not share this OTP with anyone. Enter the OTP, then click Unlock. If you did not receive the OTP, click Resend OTP. And if you still do not receive the OTP, please visit your nearest branch. Your account has now been unlocked successfully, and you can now log in. For more step-by-step videos, view our Atlantic Online playlist on YouTube to learn how to perform your banking transactions. Bank your way with any of our digital channels and save time for what matters most.
I love shop that design people, no, I tell you, no?
That's true, because they always give it things.
Yes, man.
Make I check what in my bag. Nothing in my bag. I never could win nothing.
Check my one, make I check my one. Hold on. Look at this. Yeah, watch out. We win,
Now we win, that you win, me
yeah,
still not win nothing.
Yeah, hold on, I think I see
still
something
not win
else.
nothing.
Hold on. Another one. Look
So
at
that two are we win? Two are we win?
Yes.
2,500 each.
Yes, 2,500 each. Look at.
Make we go get it now.
Mom and Dad, this one's for you. From April to June, every purchase gives you the chance to win one of 2 $2,500 shopping sprees. Shop exclusive deals on premium products for your home. Design Depot. All in one place.
The streetlight implementation plan is to replace the high-pressured sodium lights, better known as HPS lights. These HPS lights will be replaced by the LED lights. Therefore, LED streetlights advanced optics can fine-tune the distribution of lights, ensuring better coverage of the roads, roundabouts, parks, businesses, public area, homes, etc. The feedback have been great. We get positive feedback from the community when it comes to the improved brightness and light quality which LED provides by means of visibility and safety, especially at night.
Before the LED lights was installed, it was kind of dark, you know. Most of the time, you'd have to look and check. But with the LED lights now, you can see from far.
I like it because it's a nice bright light, because the customer feel much safer to come to the shop.
From the LED lights now that BL had put, it improved a lot. Well, the difference is that they look way far clearer.
Well, I must say thanks again to BL on this one, because actually our nice improvement also. It bring up the mahogany, because the mahogany is one of the active street in a Belize City, and also I live back at Gongolong, and when I come off work, it's just a bloom. Nice for me now. When I come home at night, I can see clearly.
The main objective this year is basically to change out 16,000 HPS lights. So the street light replacement will occur at every respective zone. For example, Central, Belize District, North, Orinjoa, Corozal, West, Cayo District, South, Tancreek District, and Toledo District. We have started some years back with the street light replacement project, and the 16,000 will account for the 100% that we need to complete. on the distribution system.
Bringing you a brighter tomorrow.
Guatemala, this a we we da figure. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and Guatemala. This a we da figure. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Pupa. Believe me come from the Belize.
Make her breathe. I know I get hype, and during the break I get hype. Brother Akko is here as a co-host. Brother Curtis is here as our expert on utility, electricity in particular this morning. We don't have a lot of time left. For the reason we had just now, make I ask you the question. What entity name that Trinidad and Tobago was similar to Belize PUC? What is the name of that entity?
It's the RIC, the Regulated Industries Commission. So they are the equivalent of the
Industries
PUC.
Commission. The Regulators Industries Commission do any awareness campaign for ensure that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have knowledge about the utility companies and how it's regulated? Because I don't have much awareness of Public Utilities Commission. I'm aware that in the pipeline right now, but I can't recall them actively year-round ensuring that citizens have a basic understanding of the utilities in this country, how they manage, how they're regulated. Does that happen in Trinidad?
Well, they have an active educational campaign. They do cover these issues. They do cover how average Trinidadians could query their bills, and if they have any issues with the utility, they provide that guidance. In fact, you could lodge a complaint with them, and they will tell you how long the utility has to respond. But there's a feature that they have that we have in Trinidad that's regulated by law, or enacted in law, that doesn't seem to be the case for the PUC, and that is the power of public consultation. So if there is ever a proposed rate increase in Trinidad, we have a very structured and lengthy public consultation approach. Public consultation is not putting out an ad and asking for written responses. Public consultation for the RIC in Trinidad is going to your community on a Saturday or a Friday evening, advertising where you're coming, and allow you the opportunity to speak directly to the RIC on any proposed electricity rate. And it is their duty to log your comments. So after our proposed rate increase exercise of public consultation in Trinidad was completed, they produced a document that was made public. It's a very lengthy report about each and every public consultation, the persons that made comments, their names, and what their comments were. And when you submit written comments on the rate increase, that document has your comments, and it also has their response to your comments or your issues. It was mixed in Trinidad in the sense that the opposition got involved in it, because the current administration back then wanted the rate increase, and the opposition, of course, opposed it. So it became more publicized because the opposition was there. They were in the front row to talk. In fact, things got so bad, one of the consultations, the opposition brought in a wooden coffin to the consultation and said that coffin is for the chairman of the RIC. It ended quickly after that. So it moved from what is a very respectable opportunity for citizens to comment on something that affects them directly to the opposition in Trinidad taking it to the extreme. But that, I just told you how far they could go. And that is what Belize needs to implement. So when you go through a rate increase, I saw that it's 10 days. You have 10 days to collect consultation from the public by the PUC. Perhaps they extended the deadline, but normally it's 10 days. That's not the case here. This public consultation went on for, I would say, 2 to 3 months. And it was well advertised where you could meet them and speak. It was carried live on TV and the social media. In fact, most of my Friday evenings, I enjoyed watching public consultations. So I just wanted to share that perspective. And it's something that the current administration needs to look at, changing the laws to get the PUC to adopt this very hands-on, lengthy, comprehensive public consultation for any rate increase. Because the PUC in Belize covers both telecom, water, and electricity. That's not the case in Trinidad. The telecom regulator is separated. So if the PUC adopts that approach, then the average person on the road or the average person in Belize has a say in terms of these 3 important utilities, right? Water, electricity, and communication.
That's an excellent point you made. It was a concern that I had as well. Brother Akko, final question?
Well, it's not so much a question. Maybe it is. In one of the things Brother Curtis said was the fact that there's a lot of inefficiencies in state organizations, which is true. And I will cite this one example as a statement. Is not so much a question. In the wake of what was called the Black Power movement in 1970, a demand was made to nationalize the banks. And the first bank that was formed was the National Commercial Bank of Trinidad. First local bank in Trinidad, non-white executives and so on. And the bank was a very successful bank for a long time. And then one day, they brought on the board one of the top businessmen in Trinidad to sit on the board, one of the white families. We used to call him General Bulmus. He had owned the motor car industry and all of these things, right? And I remember an elder telling me he is going there to make sure that bank failed. And I just kind of casually dismissed it. Because the sector of the economy that he came from is an opposite, totally opposite to ownership by the people. But he was supposed to be an expert. And what people don't understand, there are people with class interests who have no interest in poor people getting anything in the society. But they are placed in these positions as experts and people who would bring a certain kind of efficiency. And what they are in fact doing is sabotaging these efforts. The fact that the public utilities fail in a lot of cases, which Curtis rightly corrected, it is politicized. They put square pegs in wrong hole. They put political henchmen who are totally incompetent and so on. And that's why I'm saying the model has to be reviewed. Like all our politics in the Caribbean, not just in things, it's the politics too. We have to review a lot of our systems. A lot of it, like, for example, how the Speaker of the House is appointed in Trinidad. I'm totally opposed to that. That should be a neutral person. That should not be the majority party win and then they appoint their own speaker who has his biases, even though the president is appointed. So when I speak about models changing, we have to change a lot of our attitudes to a lot of these things, because part of it is that they deliberately, what I call, pursue certain interests, which then sabotages the process. The last thing I will say on this is, again, referring to the model. When I speak about the cooperative model, I've been in cooperative movement since I'm 16 or 17 years, which is credit unions, okay? And one of the few things that have worked, even though some have failed, but it is owned by the members. You see, what I'm seeing now in the cooperative movement, in the credit union that I am in, we are moving more toward a corporate model, not a cooperative model, right? In other words, the philosophical underpinning is being diminished every day, and credit unions are now becoming banks, right? And to me, we have to be careful when we implement any new models of the utilities that we don't implement what I call leftovers from the models that have for centuries and decades compromised and undermined our new approaches to solutions that will be beneficial to the people. That's what I would like to say there.
Valid point, Brother Akko. Valid point. Brother Curtis, was there anything we never asked you, we will feel like that information we ought to know?
Not right now. I think you guys would have covered the major issues. I guess we could spend all day talking about electricity, but the good people of Belize have things better to do with their Sunday. We could probably have a chat about me returning to if the need is there to talk about issues. But thank you for the opportunity.
For sure, for sure. We still have another 10 minutes to manage time well.
All right, great.
I just want to make sure we had enough time before I close out that everybody.
So I would say, what's the way forward? So what's the way forward for Belize, given that I would have did an introduction into the context? BEL is under financial strain. That is clear. And it's under financial strain because they are paying more for electricity from Mexico. They have rising electricity demand in Belize because of the higher temperatures, so there's greater demand. And the renewable energy projects that they want to implement are taking longer than what was expected. So the relief for them is taking longer. And that is really the reason why there's this request for this rate increase. So given that you have to deal with primarily state-owned electricity company that is struggling financially, that has to be dealt with. So my point is that this rate increase will rear its head again. This is not the last or end of it. BEL has to be, it has its financial obligations to meet. And the goal is to try to insulate at least the low-income portion of society from this rate increase. And that social rate, as I mentioned, needs to be looked at. So you have to do a proper survey of the low-income people in Belize, families, find out how much electricity they use, and do a fair social rate for them. And having said that, allow the middle class in Belize or even the upper class, make it easier for them to install solar PV. Solar PV prices or solar prices has been dropping, so it's affordable, but it's still an investment, and it may be an investment that may be out of reach for the low-income portion of society of Belize. Could the government looking at subsidies and programs that increase solar for low-income people? Of course, there are a number of programs that you could implement for that. But the main driver for distributed solar or rooftop solar is the middle class and upper class of your society. They are the ones who are going to pay. They are the ones who would have that capital available. So you have to encourage that, because the more electricity you generate inside or within Belize, the less you import from Mexico, so the less money you spend on Mexican electricity, which can be very expensive. So I think that in a way forward, that's what you could look at. I don't think the rate increase is going to go away. BEL is struggling to maintain its financial stability.
I hear that, and the Belizean people and they struggle too.
Yes.
So again, if they may say it on the news, I miss it. That the first time I hear that when PUC look over BEL documentation, instead of 40 cents,
43, it's 45.
Long page document what BELs in the PUC say from 40 cents per kilowatt hour to 43 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, the first time I hear that when PUC look on it, that may more like 45 cents per kilowatt hour. So I just say, like that, and I know leave it like that major oversight. Give thanks PUC catch it, but that no make I have trust in a BL like the calculations. Like I don't want to lose a job for a BL, but that a serious thing right there. So, but anyways, final thoughts, Brother Curtis, and then Brother Akko, and then we shut the shop. Final thoughts.
Okay, all right. I wanted you want to go ahead. I wanted to make
go
a
ahead,
point.
Brother Curtis.
Yeah,
Your final thoughts for this morning.
I think my final thoughts would be is you actually have to look at we didn't touch on transportation in Belize, right? That might take 2 to 3 episodes to do that. But it's actually linked because a lot of your fuel import is for transportation. So you can't explore the electricity sector alone. And I think you know that already because we were talking about the influence the electricity sector has on low-income families. So it's a social aspect of it as well. But there are other sectors that are coupled, are related, and transportation is another one that needs to be explored in Belize. So that's a conversation. So any decisions made on the electricity sector should not be in isolation to the electricity sector. You have to look at transportation sector. You have to look at the tourism sector as well, the impact on it. So that could be my final statement. Thanks for that opportunity.
Big thanks, Brother Curtis. You exceed my expectation. You're talking our language that we could relate to. You answer a lot of questions, and I will definitely bring you back. Brother Akko, final thoughts.
So I want to respond to a point Brother Curtis made about letting the upper income level get into purchase solar systems to generate electricity. But I believe for the sake of equity, the state need to organize the lower income sector. And this is why I suggest cooperatives, right? There's a system in which some states give you incentives. I know when I lived in Georgia, they did that based on where you live. They give you incentives to buy electricity, buy solar. And if you generate more power than you need, the state buy it back. They buy the excess power from you. So that is a model that the state need to organize around, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, I had some workers working on my house, and they were working so hard. And I looked at these young men and I said to them one day, "You're not going to work hard, and in 20 years, you're pushing cement and lifting, bags of cement and so on." I said, in 20, 30 years, you will be too old to be able to continue that kind of physical work. You need to form a cooperative. I went to the cooperative division and for them to get a multi-purpose cooperative. The division said to me, let them form a workers' cooperative. And I was telling them in the context of renting equipment, like just a concrete saw that they have to rent, that if they organize themselves as a cooperative, they can then buy 2 saws, rent it among themselves, generate additional income. They need a jackhammer and so on. So to me, the cooperative model is very important as we move forward. And the idea that if the state can organize low-income people, 100 of them, 200 of them, to form a cooperative and guide them as to how this thing should run, and they will then generate electricity for themselves, and then the excess electricity, the state can buy it from them. So my final point is that we need to consider our models of organization and our models of management systems and accountability, where the question of utilities and utility deliveries are concerned. That would be my final.
Thank you. I just keep in mind that we're operating in a capitalist system with a profit, paper over people. So most of the people, either their political circus over the they're not people of them priority. Genuinely, these are supposed to have 44 years of political independence, and the majority of people keep staying impoverished in order to work. For most Caribbean countries, I'm sure that the majority of the people, not come out of the socio-economic class for them born in indigent, impoverished. So in order to work, So for we reality have to be that it never designed for work. That's why they work so good, because it never designed for work. But this is our part, the people, the hope is with knowledge, confidence, creativity, and collective energy that we could come up with the solutions and genuinely make democracy be what it ought to be. Only the people want to save the people. So the thanks again, Brother Curtis, for being us this morning. And then remember, he's from Trinidad. Brother Curtis Boodoo, Assistant Professor, Utilities Sustainable Engineering at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, was our guest this morning, and he will come back, believe that. And we had Brother Ako, who is also from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad specifically. Our security guard this morning was Shane Flowers in XTV. We had our good sister, Christy Flowers, Christy and Shane, the family. Yes. They live right next door to XTV. And downstairs in Creme Radio, Christy, do we have Larry G? I'm not sure if we have. Yes, Larry G, Larry Guerrero, known as Larry G, is downstairs in Creme Radio. This show will repeat at 5:30 this evening. Ono could go to YouTube, XTV Belize, and Facebook, XTV Belize, and share this link, share this link, share this link. We need more opportunities like this to learn about utilities, and in Belize it would be, like Brother Curtis reminded me, it would be light, water, and telecommunications. Right now there's a big conversation, I don't know if you have noticed, Brother Curtis, that the major telecommunication provider in Belize, Digicel, is considering buying up all the competition. We have to bring it back like a long story. And the families who are involved, who own the competing telecommunication in companies. So that's a big story right now. And they don't say, like, how much millions they stand to gain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll bring it back for that.
You'll be dealing with the same regulator, the PUC. That's the same regulator. In Trinidad, they're separate, but in Belize, they're the same. So
I'm sure there are benefits to it, or plus and minuses to it being the same and different.
Yeah. In fact, I found that it's better to have telecoms under the regulator, because the telecommunication sector is very active. It changes very quickly. And some of that thinking moves over to sectors that don't change quickly at all, which is water and electricity. So when you have one regulator that has telecom as a responsibility, that sort of thinking goes towards the electricity and water sector. So we don't have that in Trinidad. So you should keep that in Belize with the PUC. Let's see how that goes with Digicel.
Give thanks. Well, and enjoy the rest on a Sunday. And remember, only the people want to save the people.
Good meeting you, brother.
Same here. Bye.
Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master.